Hello and welcome to the Championship Talk podcast. I'm your host, Paul O'Toole, and not joined with me today is my co-host, Thomas Falco. Unfortunately, both him and I have been suffering with a colds, and he's completely lost his voice. So, we're going to start with the sad news of Trevor Hemmings, Preston North End's owner, has died aged 86. He was a successful businessman. He was credited with helping to save Preston from financial difficulties when he took over. He was a major supporter of the National Hunt Racing, and he had many top horses, including 3 Grand National winners. In a statement, Preston have said Preston North End Football Club sadly confirmed the devastating news that owner Trevor Hemmings, CVO, has passed away this evening on the 11th of October. A further statement will be made in the coming days, but in the meantime, the family would ask for privacy to be respected during the difficult time. The EFL also sent out a statement. We're saddened by the news of Trevor Hemmings' passing and send our sincerest condolences to all at Preston North End this evening. So the sad news that, as I say, the owner of Preston North End has passed away. And when you look at Preston as a club, they're one of those clubs that are held up as really well run. They have got solid foundations off the field and on the field, and they're one of the clubs that I actually think a lot of the clubs should look at as merging a passionate owner and football club with running a solid foundation of a business. And they are a club that have made solid progression year after year after year, and I think that should be emulated by a lot of clubs. Moving on to Derby. They've appealed. The administrators of Derby County have appealed against the 12-point deduction for going into administration. The Derby administrators have appealed against the 12-point deduction on the basis that the club's finances were hit considerably due to the coronavirus pandemic, which is a unusual circumstance. Therefore, they feel that a 12-point deduction would be unfair given the special circumstances that sit behind it. Obviously, every football club has been hit by the financial crisis. Obviously, Derby going into administration leaves them bottom of the table on 2 points. They are 7 points adrift of Hull. So even if they get that points deduction halved, they're seeing that as a benefit. And the administrator's job is to sell Derby as a going concern. So obviously, Derby rock bottom are a less attractive proposition than Derby outside the bottom 3. So that's potentially where their position is. I think they've got some basis to say that the coronavirus didn't help the club's finances, but then the other 23 teams in this league could say exactly the same as well. The argument probably would be the foundation that Derby were in before the pandemic. The administrators have said they're confident of a sale going forward. It's going to be interesting to see who wants to take on a club that potentially doesn't own their own stadium. The BBC did a really good timeline of events in the last 6 months. So April the 7th, the sale of Derby to Eric Alonso's No Sports Limited was agreed. And then on the 14th of May, it was called off. On the 24th of June, Derby were found £100,000 over some of their accounting practices. On the 9th of July, Derby escaped a points deduction that would have seen them relegated, and Wycombe reinstated to the Championship. On the 16th of September, the AFL said no decision had taken place on a possible points deduction. On the 22nd of September, Derby were placed into administration, triggering an automatic 12-point deduction. Administrators that took over a day later said they were confident that Derby would survive, and on the 11th of October, Derby officially appealed against the points deduction that will go to an independent arbitrary tribunal. There's been reports over an approach by Mike Ashley. However, the Derby administrators say no contact has been made. Derby boss Wayne Rooney is going to do a documentary discussing mental health in football, which I think will be a very interesting watch, because I do think that's something that we don't talk about a lot. The pressure to really perform at the highest level consistently, I would imagine that takes a lot of mental toll, and I think that's going to be good to have someone with the profile of Wayne Rooney talking about that. And I'm pretty certain it's going to focus more on his playing days. However, I would imagine the current situation may come into it as well. The next thing we're going to talk about is this was a great report in the Telegraph, and it was 1/3 of EFL footballers that were polled say they have no plans to get the vaccine. This was an article on the 1st of September, one that me and Thomas missed. I've given my thoughts as to that I think everyone has a right to choose what vaccines they take and what treatment they have, and I don't think that anyone should be judged or not judged for their decision. The stance I take on it is I do struggle to believe that some of these footballers are paid significant sums of money and they're not being advised that this potentially could prolong their career, because if they were to get this virus, this could have respiratory problems, there are complications that are caused by it, long COVID, etc. Why you'd not take every chance to safeguard your potential earning power on a very finite career. A footballer's career starts at 16 potentially if they're lucky, and ends when they're 35 if they're lucky. When you then look, that's the time frame they have to protect, and why any footballer would not want the vaccine I struggle to understand purely from a career longevity point of view. And I want to use some examples. There was famous examples of footballers having goat placenta treatment. What? Why? No medical foundation, but they did it because it would help them heal quicker. And we've had, if you look in cycling, blood transfusions, platelet transfusions. What are you doing? Like, why? Just to get a few seconds. And I think that's kind of, if you're going to go to those levels to potentially win or stay healthy, why you'd not have an injection that billions of people are having to potentially stave off a virus that could attack your respiratory system, that would have a direct impact on your ability to play the sport that you want to play. Now, that could be some people ultra competitive, that could be some people not ultra competitive, but they're just two examples of where we've had examples of in many sports performance enhancing drugs, especially in the athletics. Again, taking synthetic substances to increase your performance. Like, why you would then not have a vaccine? And again, the correlations are very thin, but it kind of highlights sport in general and the thinking of not potentially having that vaccine. Now, I think it's absolutely right, and I don't think they should be treated any different. I just find it difficult to understand agents, sponsors, not looking at the financial impact of investing in an individual, clubs investing in an individual. If you took a 5-year contract, players paid 20 grand a week, and there are players in the Championship paid 20 grand a week. That's millions of pounds over 5 years, and there are agents that are working those deals, those health professionals, those sponsors for players. The money's just astronomical, but it's all reliant on that individual staying healthy. Now, look at some of the severe injuries we've had. A bad knee injury can end a career, or certainly change a performance of a player. A bad head injury, God forbid, could be life-changing, certainly end a career. They're accidents. Whereas this is an injection that will stop them getting a potentially, for some a cold, but for some potentially long-term effects from respiratory condition. It's crazy. And I think that's a discussion for me and Thomas to have another date and time, because it's very interesting. And I still stand by it, that I feel it's an individual's right to choose. I think the bit I struggle with is why 1/3 of EFL footballers would not choose to potentially prolong their career that has a finite length to it, regardless of their beliefs, like regardless of whether they think it'll work or not. Why you'd not take that chance? Who goes and has goat placenta rubbed on them, or whatever it was that happened done? I think it was Robin van Persie. Who goes and does that? Like, how does that going to work? But still did it because he wanted his knees to stay fit. Do you see what I mean? And that's the bit that I can't quite get my head around. But comments in the comments down below, because I think that'll be an interesting discussion. And again, comment, argue, don't insult. Simple as that. Comment and argue. I love an argument. Me and Thomas, our friendship is based on us arguing it with each other. But you've got to be respectful, listen to the other opinion, and you never know, you might learn something. So that's it from me. As always, if you want to support the show, leave us a thumbs up, hit us a subscribe, catch out the main podcast, which is on any kind of podcast subscription service, where I'm going to go through the 2 weeks of fixtures before the international break, all the goals, and the preview the weekend's fixtures that are coming up, because it's really nice to have football back. That's goodbye from me. Goodbye from me. Thank Thomas, and I'll speak to you all later.